transmission.
Hey, Overlord. It's me, Dreg. In this transmission, I build a mech. I am painfully aware that some of my viewers like to take copious amounts of notes.
ROBO-FEET.
So I broke this build into easy-to-follow steps. I thought the best place to start was with the feet. The ROBO-FEET are made entirely out of plastic clothespins, popsicle sticks, and glue. To make the toes, I measured roughly 45-degree angles, marked it off, and off-screen, I dangerously cut them using a small table saw. If I do anything remotely dangerous, I try not to do it on camera. Last thing I want is for little Tommy or Johnny running to their mother with a bloody nub, screaming about how Dreg did it, and it worked just fine. You know what, Tommy? It almost wasn't fine. I almost lost a finger. The toes were very tedious to attach, very hard to glue on. They kept falling off. After the feet were done, they were a little long, so I used a Dremel to chop them in half. Problem was, now I had these holes in the back of the feet, so I used some foam and super glued them in place. After they were glued in place, I used an X-Acto knife to trim off the excess foam. Little Tommy, X-Acto knives are very sharp. Be careful if your mommy decides to let you use one. These are 2 keys from a messed up keyboard. I added them to the back of the feet to add a little bit of shape.
Robo-legs.
I took some plastic utensils and cut off the utensil part. I just wanted the handles. I honestly don't remember where I got the idea of using plastic utensils to make legs. I think it was Indie Mecha. I'm not sure. Either way, I'll give him credit for it. I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. He's better at making robots and things than I am. So turn off this video and watch his.
ROBO-CANKLES.
If you don't know what it means, I'll explain it. I don't know if it's an American term or not. Cankles. Kind of a derogatory term. It's where somebody has fat ankles, where their calf just runs directly into their feet. The ankles of my mech were a little skinny, so I used some extra foam to flesh them out to give them cankles. Many years ago, I knew someone who had cankles. It was awful. Now I have to atone for the sin of judging somebody based on their ankles.
Awful, pointless dance party. Amazing. Robo-Body.
I trace on a scrap piece of paper so I know how big a hole I need to cut. If you're confused, no worries. You'll understand soon enough.
Expand-A-FOAM.
I have a real love-hate relationship with Expand-A-FOAM. It's very handy to fill voids, but it can get kind of pricey, especially if you're only using a small amount and you can only use a can one time. Once the foam sets up in the nozzle, it's done. And it takes a while for the foam to fully cure.
Robo-Eye socket.
That piece of paper from earlier, I glued it on and cut around it with the Dremel. I wanted the viewport to fit in there snugly. Even though the Expand-A-FOAM on the end was dry, on the inside it was still very wet. I had to wait for it to cure. After a little cleanup around the edges, it was time for the
Robo-Eye.
If I had a hole saw, I could have cut a better circle, but I didn't, so I just used a Dremel. I tried my hardest to cut a circle, but I wasn't too worried about it. I knew this build was gonna be junky and well loved, so I just filled in the gaps with some extra super glue and baking soda and pieces of foam.
ROBO-TOP-O-DA-MECH.
I've used this technique in the past. There's a divot on the top, but I don't want it to be there. I trace and cut out a piece of cardboard. Take a water bottle cap and glue it in place in the center. Then glue the cardboard in place, making sure to glue your fingertips in place also.
Robo-Eye.
Taking some strips of cardboard, I glue some straps over the ROBO-EYE.
Robo-Body.
To add a bit of detail, I glue a random piece of cardboard to the body. Trace and cut out a piece of EVA foam. Glue it to the bottom using some tacky glue. Cut some smaller cardboard straps. Because I couldn't get the foam bottom to glue down properly, I used these straps to hold it in place. The straps serve a practical and an artistic function.
Robo-Hips.
Cutting some golf trainer balls in half. Holding up a ruler to make it look like I'm measuring it.
Robo-Thighs.
I took popsicle sticks and jammed them in the gaps between the handles of the plastic utensils.
Robo-Legs.
gluing the thighs to the ROBO-CANKLES.
Robo-legs.
I made a scaffolding out of junk, placed the robo-body up top, laid the legs alongside of it, glued it in place. Hopefully it'll stand under its own weight.
Fleshing out the Robo-Build.
I took the lid off of a spice jar and glued a random keyboard key to the top of it to hide the logo, then glued it between the legs as a hatch for the pilot. Some cheap headphones I ripped apart serve as detailing on the legs. I glued a couple Final Faction weapons on the sides for no particular purpose at all. Maybe they serve some sort of technical function. Using a disposable coffee cup sleeve, I add some detail to the back of the mech. Using a last bit of wire I found above the ceiling tiles in my classroom, I added a little bit of detail to the legs on my mech. If you look carefully, you'd see that I ripped this one off on accident. It's nothing a little super glue and baking soda won't fix. Then I add rivets.
Painting.
I wanted to try something a little different, so I made a wash out of gunmetal gray paint.
Ooh, pretty.
I just painted this on and let it flow wherever it wanted to, settling in the recesses. It added a nice gradient. I knew I was not going to go crazy on the paint job on this. I just added a little bit of blue on the panels that I glued on. While I was building this, I came up with a storyline for it. I'll share that during the money shots. Then I added some light gray just to add a bit of variation.
Artistic shot challenge.
Most of the color on this mech I wanted to come from rust, so I made several different colors of washes, from oranges to reds to browns, even a couple blacks, and just let them drip down to wherever they wanted to. This process was a little time consuming. I did not use my stolen hair dryer to dry it off. I just allowed it to air dry. I didn't want the hair dryer to blow the paint around. I'm painting the cockpit just a silver color to make it look like one-way windows or something. Even though I added the drips randomly, I was careful not to have them overlap too much. I did want to have a gradient sometimes, but sometimes I just wanted various shades of rust to be dripping down. I can tell that my skill as a painter is growing. In the past, I just slathered it with paint and saw what stick. Now I'm being mindful of what colors are showing through.
Money shots.
In these shots, I include a little action figure to kind of show you a little bit of scale. I did some math, and this model is 1/16 scale. That means that if this little action figure is 6 feet tall, then this mech is 13 foot 4 inches tall, or in metric, 4 meters and some change. In the future, there are two classes of people, the ultra-rich and everybody else. The ultra-rich are so far removed from the equation that the average person doesn't even think about them. Everybody else lives in the slums. The only law in the slums are what law the gangs can provide. Some gangs are evil, ruthless, out only to expand their territory. Other gangs want to bring back civilization. Some gangs build mechs for particular purposes. This mech is a communication tower. There are no industries, no infrastructure in the slums. The only thing that is made are made with scraps from the ultra wealthy or from previous years. If a communication tower were to be built in a permanent location, gangs would tear it down for the scraps. The only way for long-range communication between the gangs to exist are for these mobile communication towers. When I began this build, I did not intend to create a world, but as I started building it, I started thinking about what it could be used for. Why aren't there weapons on this? Then it came to me. It makes sense to give a story, a purpose, for each of my builds. So I'm going to continue doing it, continue fleshing out my cyberpunk reality. If you've made it this far in the video, please like, subscribe, share. Let me know what you think of my reality I'm building. If you know somebody who would enjoy these videos, please share it with them. Hey Overlord, it's me. How you doing? It's been a while, haven't heard your voice. I know this primitive planet doesn't pick up any tachyon emission bursts, but I was thinking maybe you could leave a comment below. Let me know you're listening. Let me know what your plans are. I hate to think that these videos are only being viewed by the primitive primates that live on this pitiful little rock. But even if they are the only ones watching, I will continue making them for their enjoyment and for my sanity.
In transmission.